would I do if I knew that I could not fail? And if I really believed that the wind would always fill up my sails, how far would I go? What would I achieve? Trusting the hero in me. If I were brave, I'd walk the razor's edge, where true believers dare to tread and never lose faith, even when losing my way. What step would I take today if I were brave? What if we're all meant to have what we secretly dream? And what if we ask and we could have anything? Like a mighty oak sleeps in the heart of a seed, are there miracles in you and me? No, they are. What would I do today if I were brave? If I refused to listen to that voice of fear? Would that voice of courage, would it whisper in my ear? If I were brave, I'd walk the razor's edge, and we could be true believers who dare to tread and never lose faith, even when losing our way. What step will we take today? Now that we're brave, what would we do today? Now we are brave, what would we do today? Now we are brave. Now that we're brave.
Please join me in prayer. We give thanks for everything that will take place here today, knowing that it will be absolutely perfect in every way. And we are grateful for the beautiful light beings who come together to help us celebrate our oneness and bring this all together. We know that even in the presence of fear, that love is all there is. And this is the fuel that flows through us as us to make a world that works for everyone. We are so grateful for that opportunity to be here and to do that and to take on that charge. I give thanks for every beautiful expression of the divine in this space to celebrate me, with me, and release these words into that law that knows how to mold, make, shape, and create all the good there is, everywhere, all the time. I let this go, I let it be, and together we affirm, and so it is. And as usual, I was able to uncover some wonderful material from our founder, the Honorable Dr. Ernest Holmes, as thoughts of inspiration. Our first quote says that all the power of the universe is back of every constructive thought. How about that? We can co-create with this power. Second quote, we're not merely receiving centers, we are giving centers as well. And finally, he says, peace is a spiritual quality that must be cultivated from within before it appears without.
First of all, welcome. My name is Reverend Dr. David Goldberg, and it's my great joy to be with you. Whether you're with us for the first time or you've been coming here for decades, I do need to speak into the space that we are an inclusive community. So whoever you are, wherever you are on your journey, whatever you have done, whatever you have not done, please know that you are welcome here. It's not ours to tell you what to believe, but we all explore together. And I do have some updates on some of our congregants, some of whom are in the room today, but I did want to start with our beloved Liana Lansing. Liana is still in the hospital, so your continued prayers and love for her are always welcome. And for her beloved sister Athena, who is her caregiver as well, so thank you for that. And we do want to say thank you, Mickey. You always show up. You are here. We send our love and support and healing energy to you as you continue to work through a couple of physical challenges. We love you. We bless you. We honor you. And to our sweet Marty, you were missed as well. Welcome back. And we understand that your vacation is certainly not what you intended and what you hoped it would be. And we continue to surround your dear sister-in-law, your brother, and you with our love, with our support, and whatever we can do. We are here for you, and we love you. So thank you. And so, my friends, this is the third Sunday of August. Oh my gosh, I love those months with 5 Sundays. So here we are at the third Sunday talking about the fear and the furious. And our focus today, in the presence of fear. Last week we talked a little bit about making fear our friend. And what if fear isn't wrong or bad? What if, like any other emotion, when it shows up, we work through it and we keep going, right? You've heard me reference it before, like the old country western song, when you're going through hell, keep on going. We don't need to camp out there. We get to keep moving through it. I stand in the truth that no emotion is bad until we try to stuff it. Parents know that about kids, and about grandkids, and about great-grandkids, and I invite us into that knowing for ourselves. Whatever we try to suppress ends up coming out sideways. At least that's my experience. So, yeah, we've been taking a fresh look at anger, and we've been taking a fresh look at fear. So today we're taking one more step in that direction. Instead of asking what fear is trying to tell us, I'd like us to ask, what happens when we simply stay present with it? I think most of us have developed one of 3 strategies when fear shows up. And you'll remember the backronyms I shared last week for fear. False evidence appearing real, or forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. And that's the energy that we choose to be in today. So the 3 strategies that most of us have developed, the first one is we fight it, right? We're going to fight against this. I am strong. I am powerful. I am man. I am woman. I am whoever I choose to identify as, and I can do this. Okay. The second option is we flee from it. Nope, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm out of here. Or if we're really good, we distract ourselves. We turn on the television. We scroll through our phones. We clean the garage. We check our email. We reorganize a closet that doesn't need reorganizing. Anybody ever done any of those coping mechanisms? Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's amazing how productive we can become when there's something we'd rather not feel. And eventually, fear catches up with us because feelings have a remarkable way of waiting patiently until we're finally willing to pay attention. So this week, probably doesn't come as a surprise to most of you, I've been thinking about birthdays. Now don't worry, I'm not fishing for presents, although I'm certainly not opposed. But next Sunday, Rick and I will both celebrate our 66th birthdays. Since it's my regular Sunday off, I won't be with you that day, so I thought I'd mention it today. 66 somehow sounds like a real milestone, if nothing else because of that song as an earworm, and it just keeps coming back to me, about Route 66. The good news is I don't feel 66 most mornings, and this is when you're supposed to say you don't look 66 either. And perhaps we all need our glasses tuned up. But seriously, birthdays have a way of inviting reflection. They ask us not only where we've been, but who we've become. And as I was preparing to speak with you today, I realized that one of the greatest gifts of growing older is that you gradually stop being afraid of some of the things that used to keep you awake at night. Not because it's easier, because it's not, but because you've accumulated enough evidence that you've survived exactly 100% of every difficult situation that you've been faced with so far in your life. You begin trusting yourself. You begin trusting God. And you begin realizing that fear doesn't always deserve the authority you've been giving it. So, in addition to sharing the same birthday, the same day, the same year, I wanted to share with you that New Year's Day will be 10 years that Rick and I have been married. And thank you. And we've been together 14 years. So what that looked like briefly, the day we met, some of you are familiar with Louise Hay and Hay House Publications and many of the authors and I would say progressive spirituality folks come together under that umbrella. Well, Rick and I met at a Hay House I Can Do It conference with about 1,000 of our best friends at the convention center in downtown Denver. And he was there with his friend, and I was there with my friend. And as we go walking down the main corridor, of this massive convention center, she said, "We're going to find you a husband today." I was like, "Awesome, knock yourself out." And again, as we're walking down the concourse, she says, "How about that one? How about that one? How about that one? How about?" I said, "You know who I am, right? I do have some standards." No disrespect to everybody she was pointing out. And in the meantime, Rick was stepping up to the table. Hay House has dozens of authors, and they were in the publishing world, what we call papering the house. They were giving away many, many, many free books. So Rick was in line to get a book from a fellow psychic, and he stepped up, and she said, "Who can I make this out to?" And he said, "Rick." And so she wrote on the inscription, "To Rick and she looked up at him. And he said, "Oh no, I've been happily single for 9 years." And she said, you're going to meet somebody today. And so fast forward through the day, then I went to, my friend and I went to a bunch of workshops together. I decided to go to something different. She wanted to go to Doreen Virtue? Sonia Choquette. And so just like this, Rick was sitting in the front row with his friend next to him, and the seat next to them was open. And he said to his friend, I'm saving this seat for my lover. And then in comes my friend and sits in that seat. And his friend looks at him and says, I thought you said, I'm saving that seat for my mother. And so anyway, Sonia has them get up, they're interacting, what everybody loves to do at 9 o'clock in the morning. And my friend Tracy turns to Rick and says, I know your husband. And Rick, like my first impression, Rick was like, great. She's like, can I have your card? They tried to find me. I was unfindable somewhere in that big convention center. She brings me his card. She said, the card's a little wonky, but check out his website. He seems like a real good guy. I looked, I called him. We ended up having dinner, and here we are. So, So I share that with you then by way of stepping out of fear. Rick acknowledged that he had been single for 9 years. I had been single for 10 after my partner made his transition from a heart attack overnight and was gone. And then I have shared this with you before as well. I created the intention of who I was calling in, right? Stepping out of my fear, facing everything and rising. So this is who I wanted to call in. Somebody who's gorgeous and glorious, spiritually aligned, HIV-free, integrous, prosperity conscious, fun, soulmate. Not necessarily in that order. And so this is who I manifested, thank you very much. To Mickey's point, when we look at things, when we face things, when we direct things, they have a way of manifesting. So I would invite you to consider, for all of you who are working on something, creating something, or releasing something, as my dear friend Edwin Gaines says, what goes on in vagueness stays in vagueness. So if I just would have said, I'm open to having a partner, well, okay, Spirit can work with that. And when I got specific, when I stepped into specificity, Spirit was able to help me manifest exactly who and what I wanted. So that is what I share with you. So isn't what I was talking about then, stepping into fear, and fear being a part of the good aspects of our lives and the challenging aspects of our lives, isn't it true for so many moments where there might be a little bit of both? A new relationship, a new career, a move to a new city, starting a family, beginning a spiritual journey. Almost everything that we would identify as a blessing arrives wrapped in just a little bit of uncertainty. So this week for our call and response, we're keeping it beautifully simple. After I speak, I would appreciate it if you would say, love is there. Love is there. I remain present.
Love is there.
When fear appears, when life feels uncertain,
Love is there.
one more time, I remain present.
Love is there.
Yes. Our reading this week comes from the wonderful Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron. She writes something extraordinarily beautiful and simple. Over and over again, she encourages us with one word: stay. When our minds wander, stay. When fear appears, stay. When we're uncomfortable, stay. When we'd rather run away, you get the idea, right? Stay. It sounds simple. It's not easy. Everything inside of us wants relief immediately. Yet, Pema suggests something profound. The very experience we're trying to escape may become our greatest teacher if we're willing to remain present long enough to hear it. Ernest Holmes offers a complementary insight from Science of Mind when he writes, "Fear is nothing more nor less than the negative use of faith. Faith misplaced." I love that phrase, faith misplaced, because Holmes isn't condemning us for feeling fear. He's reminding us that we already know how to have faith. The question is simple. Where are we placing it? Are we placing our faith in the divine presence that has carried us through every single challenge in our lives so far? That's the invitation before us today. So the first point I invite you into is we honor fear by listening without giving it the wheel. I want to start by reminding us that fear certainly deserves our attention, but it should never become our driver. Think about your car. You probably want several people along for the journey. Joy should certainly come. Hope absolutely gets a seat. Wisdom gets shotgun. Love should absolutely be driving. Fear? Fear can ride along. Fear can even point out construction ahead. Fear can remind us to buckle our seatbelt. Fear might occasionally notice something we've overlooked. And fear should never grab the steering wheel. When fear drives, everything begins to look like danger. You remember the adage, when you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail? Yeah. Every conversation feels threatening. Every change seems impossible. And when love drives, fear still has a voice, and it no longer has authority. That's one of the great spiritual practices of adulthood, don't you think? Learning to acknowledge our emotions without surrendering our lives to them. Pema Chodron says, stay. Science of Mind says, choose consciously. Both are inviting us into exactly the same spiritual maturity. Not the absence of fear, but the presence of awareness. And awareness changes everything. The second point for your consideration is fear deepens our capacity for compassion. And maybe this is the most surprising thing I'm sharing with you this whole month. We know that when we stop fighting fear, we often discover a greater capacity for compassion for ourselves and for one another. Have you ever noticed how quickly fear can cause us to make assumptions? Someone doesn't return our phone call. Oh, they must be upset with me. Someone walks past us without speaking. They're ignoring me. Somebody doesn't respond to my text in 3.5 minutes. They're angry. Isn't it amazing how our minds can write an entire movie based on virtually no evidence? And somehow in my version of that movie, I'm always the star. But seriously, fear has a vivid imagination. It fills in blanks with stories that usually aren't true. That's why compassion is such a revolutionary spiritual practice. Compassion says, maybe there's another explanation. Maybe something else is going on. What else might be true? Maybe the person who didn't smile today is carrying grief. Maybe the impatient cashier is worried about a sick parent. Maybe your friend who's become distant isn't rejecting you at all. They're simply overwhelmed. Compassion reminds us that everyone we meet is fighting a battle we know nothing about. That realization changes how we move through the world. Now, one of the most beloved TV shows of the past few years is Ted Lasso. Any fans? Good. Getting ready for season 4, yeah? If you've watched, say again?
Is Ted Lasso coming back?
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
You heard it here first. If you watched it, you probably remember that one of Coach Ted's most famous lines is, "Be curious, not judgmental." What wonderful spiritual advice. Every time someone behaves badly, we have a choice. We can become judgmental, or we can become curious. Curiosity asks, I wonder what happened to this person. Judgment asks, what's wrong with this person? These are very different questions. Science of Mind has always encouraged curiosity. Holmes taught that every person is an individualized expression of the one life. If that's true, then every person is worthy of understanding before condemnation. Curiosity doesn't excuse harmful behavior, to be sure, but it often helps explain it. And understanding creates room for compassion. So years ago, at one of the first funerals, one of the first memorial services I was asked to officiate, I stepped into the room with the family before the service, and the energy was palpable, and forgive me, but not in a good way. This person was angry. This person was stoic. This person was snipping. This person was micromanaging every detail. One person walked out of the room. Another one refused not to speak. It looked like every dysfunctional family that many of us have known. And underneath it all was an anger. Underneath it all was grief. Everyone loved the same person. Everyone was hurting differently. Everyone was expressing that hurt differently. They simply expressed it in different ways. One became quiet, one became controlling, another became emotional, another became busy, and none of those reactions was really about anybody else in the room, right? They were all different languages for the same broken heart. I've never forgotten that because I've realized over the years that many of the difficult people we encounter aren't actually that different. They're frightened. They're grieving. They're exhausted. They're carrying burdens we can't see. When we remember that our first response becomes compassion instead of criticism, it puts us in a very different place. And isn't that exactly how God meets us? Not with condemnation, but with compassion. Not because we've earned it, but because love simply knows no other way. Science of Mind teaches that divine presence is forever expressing itself through us. If we wish to reveal God more fully, then compassion isn't optional. It becomes our spiritual practice. The third point I'd invite you into today is that fear invites creative growth. So now we're widening the lens, right? We're taking a little bit bigger look. So far this month, we've talked mostly about our personal flaws. But what happens when an entire community or an entire nation or even the world experiences fear together? We're reminded that collective fear can neither divide us or become fertile ground for creativity, innovation, and authentic connection. History gives us countless examples. Communities rebuilding after natural disasters. Neighbors helping neighbors after tragedy. Scientists collaborating to solve problems. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things simply because the circumstances required it. Fear didn't create the goodness, it did reveal it. And invited people to become more than they thought they could be. That's one of the paradoxes of spiritual growth. We rarely discover our deepest strength when everything is easy. We discover it when life asks more of us than we thought we had to give. Joseph Campbell famously said, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. I don't know about you, I've found that to be remarkably true. Nearly every significant blessing in my life required walking through a door that felt uncertain. Every meaningful relationship, every new ministry, every new classroom, 3 of which I'm stepping into again on Tuesday, every new opportunity. None of these came with guarantees, only invitations. Science of Mind teaches that we are forever evolving expressions of infinite life. That means God isn't finished with any of us yet. No matter your age, no matter your past, no matter how many birthdays you've celebrated, how many trips around the sun, life continues inviting us into new expressions of who we already are. Fear may stand at the entrance, but love is already waiting on the other side. And when we remember that, we stop asking, how can I avoid fear? Instead, we begin asking, what new life is trying to emerge through me? That's a much better question because it moves us from survival to possibility, from hesitation to participation, from fear to faith. So what does that look like for us here in this community? Where does the rubber meet the road at New Dawn? How do we put this message into practice? How do we move beyond simply understanding fear and begin living differently because of it? I'd like to suggest 3 simple things for you to consider and perhaps to step into this week. The next time you notice fear beginning to rise, resist the temptation to immediately distract yourself. Set your phone down, step away from your laptop, and take a breath. Maybe even close your eyes for a moment. Simply ask, what am I feeling? What is this fear trying to protect? What would love have me do right now? Remember Pema Chodron's simple instruction, stay. Not forever, just long enough to hear what your soul has been trying to say. Sometimes the greatest spiritual breakthrough comes from not finding the answer, but from finally asking the right question. Second, choose compassion before conclusions. This week, every time someone disappoints you, cuts you off in traffic, interrupts you, criticizes you, or simply rubs you the wrong way, pause before deciding who they are. Instead, ask, I wonder what burden they might be carrying. You may never know the answer, but asking the question is what changes your heart. It softens your response. It reminds you that every person you encounter is far more than the few moments you happen to see. I got a call on Wednesday of last week asking me if I would do a memorial on Friday. Long, complicated story. Once again, a family that thought theirs was the only one who was dysfunctional. And I said yes, and I did a Zoom call with 4 or 5 people on Thursday, did what I could do, did this service on Friday morning. One of the reasons the turnaround was so fast is that the deceased had made the decision for a natural funeral. So there was no embalming, there was no casket other than a plain wooden box, and so we had to act more quickly than if there were chemicals involved. We did the service, she was buried, and that was her wish. And the reason I invoke this beloved, her name happened to be Kathleen, is Kathleen's favorite saying was, nobody is just one thing. And we all know that, and that's not new information to any of us. And it's so simple, and it's so clear, and it's so brilliant that's what I invite you into this week when somebody does something to tweak you just a little bit, right? That makes you just a little bit scratchy. The world has enough judgment. Let's become people who offer understanding. Third, become a calming presence. One of the greatest gifts we can offer the world is not having all of the answers. It's becoming someone whose presence helps other people breathe a little easier. So the invitation, my friends, is when fear speaks, bring peace. When anxiety rises, bring hope. When others become reactive, be the one who remains centered. Not because you're pretending everything is fine, but because you've learned where your center truly is. That is our goal for New Dawn. That is what New Dawn can become. Not simply a place where people come to hear inspiring ideas and extraordinary music, but a community whose very presence brings healing into a frightened world. So again, for 3 weeks, we've journeyed together through emotions that most of us spend our lives trying to avoid. First, anger, then fear as a compass, and today, remaining present in the presence of fear. If I were to highlight one lesson that I hope you take from my talks this month, it's this: God is not asking us to become emotionless. God is inviting us to become conscious. Conscious enough to recognize that every emotion carries information. Conscious enough to choose our response rather than simply reacting. Conscious enough to remember that love has already met us in every place where fear thinks it lives. Ernest Holmes reminds us that fear is simply faith placed in limitation rather than possibility. Think about that. If fear is misplaced faith, then faith is simply love placed in the right direction. We don't need to manufacture courage, although this is my last opportunity to do the cowardly lion for a while. We simply remember where our trust belongs. As we've said throughout this year, our annual theme is open at the top. To me, that means remaining teachable. I get to stand in my power. I get to know my capital T truth. And as someone who's here to learn, grow, and expand, we're all open at the top. Remain teachable, remain curious, remain receptive, remain willing to let Spirit surprise us. One of Rick's favorite things to do in the morning is to say, okay, Spirit, surprise and delight me today. And I'll be damned if he isn't always surprised and delighted. Because every time we choose openness over certainty, love over fear, and curiosity over judgment, we become a little more like the people God has always known us to be. And perhaps that's the greatest miracle of all. Not that fear disappears, but that love becomes greater. Please, if you'd join me in prayer, practitioners and ministers, if you'd rise in consciousness. Infinite Presence, we thank you for walking beside us through every season of our lives. Thank you for never asking us to pretend, never asking us to deny our humanity, never asking us to become fearless before you welcome us home. Instead, you meet us exactly where we are, in our uncertainty, in our questions, in our fears, in our hopes. Let us remember this week that fear is never the end of the story. It's simply an invitation to look more deeply, to trust more completely, to love more generously, to live more fully. May we become people who remain present when others run away. People who offer compassion instead of criticism. People who create peace simply by entering the room. As we each continue our own life's journey, remind us that every year we are given is another sacred opportunity to grow in wisdom, kindness, and gratitude. As Rick and I prepare to celebrate our birthdays this week, we are especially grateful for the gift of another year, another opportunity to love, to serve, to learn, and to become more fully who you created us to be. Thank you for every lesson that has shaped us, every challenge that has strengthened us, every relationship that has blessed us, every beginning that still awaits us. May we greet the future not with anxious hearts, but with joyful expectation, trusting that the same love that has carried us this far will faithfully carry us the rest of the way. Bless every family represented here today and those who will be viewing us later online. Bless those carrying heavy burdens. Bless those beginning new chapters. Bless those who are grieving. Bless those who are celebrating. And remind every one of us that wherever we go, your presence arrives first. For this, we are deeply grateful. I release, I let go, I simply allow it to be. We anchor this together by saying, and so it is, and so I am, and so we are.
This is the place we all get together. We know where we belong. It's all about loving and caring, healing and sharing, helping each other be strong. It's all about sweet spirit. I can't wait for you to hear it. No matter where you are, this is our place, yours and my place. Whether you're near or far, this is our place. Come on in. Our place, so glad you're here. Our place, everybody's welcome. We see God on every face. Oh, our place, sit right down. Our place, love lives here. Our place, everybody's welcome. We see God on every face. Aren't you glad you found your way home? To this place we know we are never alone. This is our place. Come on in. Our place, come back again. Our place, everybody's welcome. We see God on every face. Love's here in this place. Thank you, Dr. David, for talking to us at our place. Sweet, 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 sweet place. Remember that?